Hello, everybody. I'm Crystal Hughes, and welcome to At Home with NCWLIFE, your local resource for all things home and real estate. Today, we'll be interviewing with real estate agent Emily Ostrem, but first, your weekly market update. Many are in much wonder and possibly fear about what is happening currently and next for the real estate market nationally and locally. National median single-family homes grew on an annual basis in 99% of all markets analyzed by the National Association of Realtors during the second quarter of 2021, with 94% of markets seeing double-digit price growth, led by the Northeast at 21.8%, similarly to our local market. The median existing single-family home price rose 22.9% year over year during the second quarter to $350,000. Home price gains and the accompanying house wealth accumulation have been spectacular over the past year, but are unlikely to be repeated in 2022, says NAR's chief economist Lauren Yoon. He continued to say that there are signs of more supply reaching the market and some tapering of demand. The housing market looks to move from super hot to warm, with markedly slower price gains. Housing affordability for first-time buyers is weakening, Yoon said. Unfortunately, the benefits of historically low interest rates are overwhelmed by home prices rising too fast, thereby requiring a higher income in order to become a homeowner. The mortgage payment on a 10% down payment loan rose to 25% of a first-time homebuyer's income. That's up 21% from this time last year. A mortgage is generally considered affordable if payments make up no more than 25% of a family's income. So those of you who said that they were going to wait to see what the market did, in hesitation, paid 20% more than they would have last year. That is also true for our local market with a 20% increase. Housing supply will be critical in moderating the growing housing costs and rising rents, Yoon continued to say. Any disincentive to produce more housing inventory, such as extending the eviction moratorium, will only worsen the current shortage. There was a meeting in Chelan County August 17th at 10:30 a.m. at the courthouse with an intention to extend the moratorium. This could potentially have lasting effects on our local economy over time, and your opinion is welcome to voice your concerns or questions regarding the future impact. Interest rates skyrocketed in the early 80s. The peak mortgage rate was 18.5% in 1981. That means that real estate brokers were able to sell homes even with an 18% interest rate. But we do not want a repeat of those times. I've learned that after closely watching the housing market over the last almost 10 years, that over time, things cycle. If we consider after the Great Recession and when the Federal Reserve's warnings of catastrophic inflation began, those warnings are similarly back with the pandemic relief and easy money Fed policies. We've particularly seen this in the housing market over the past 12 months, where home builders are still struggling to keep up with the housing demand. And as a result, many have been raising prices and not taking on new contracts until they can catch up. In late June, the lumber prices did start to drop. Economists at Fannie Mae think that the home price appreciation peaked during the second quarter of this year and will gradually decelerate over the next 18 months. But they expect home price growth to become one of the more persistent drivers of inflation going forward. The key question many economy watchers are asking is whether inflation will be moderate or accelerate. There are arguments on both sides made by very educated people, but some of the answer will ultimately be driven by human behavior. The Fed is watching intently for inflation indicators, as well so should we. If the economic recovery drives inflation higher, they should step in and act to minimize the possibility towards unattainable price and rate increases. Affordability has been an issue for years. Home prices need to moderate and available housing to increase to create an opportunity for first-time homebuyers. So what's the bottom line? If mortgage rates go up, if supply increases, or if demand moderates, prices will reflect this. Many homeowners were upside down in 2008 because of 100% financing for buyers. Well, today, home price inflation and stricter lending policies have created more housing wealth and equity than ever before. Staying informed is key, and education inflation can have a deep and lasting impact on housing and the larger economy. Let's hope that there is some stabilization and that this too shall pass. Our local median sales price is up $425,000. That's up 21% from last year. Average days on the market is 50 plus, and the average sales price to list price ratio is up from 98% to 102% this year. This suggests that the market is very competitive with low inventory and high demand. If you are considering selling, buying, or even just curious about the market, talk with a local expert like myself or your trusted realtor, lender, and financial advisors. I'm your host, and that was your weekly market update. Welcome back. We're here today with real estate agent Emily Ostrem. Thanks again for being here with us today, Emily.
Absolutely.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about what got you started into real estate, kind of why you chose real estate, and how long you've been doing it.
Yeah. So I got my license in 2018, but I've been doing it full time since April of 2019 when I moved over to the Leavenworth area. I got into real estate because my dad is a contractor. He's been a contractor his whole life, and I grew up with blueprints on the table, and we used to go after church on Sundays and drive around and look at properties for sale, and it was just always kind of in the back of my mind.
Sure.
And then my cousin Molly, who works over at Keller Williams in the East Side, really helped me get into it and got me into the Rockwell Institute and passed my tests, and I went directly over to KW side and just signed up right then and there.
Love it. So Molly Haynes, she's awesome. Real estate agent, Seattle side, Kirkland area.
Yeah.
Yes, very good. So she has a team. So if anybody's over there, they can utilize her services. So you got in the industry 2018, started on the west side, and then moved over here, and I've been doing real estate basically full-time since 2019.
Correct, yeah.
Excellent. So kind of with some of your background, tell us a little bit about what you did prior to selling real estate.
Sure. I grew up in the customer service industry. Every job I had was customer facing or was horse related. And for the last 8 years before I got my license, I was bartending and I was managing bars full-time. And I bounced around from nightclubs to stadiums to breweries. It kind of didn't matter where I was at. I enjoyed it. But I was ready for a change. I was ready to get out of Seattle and, get into the sunshine. And
naturally, like we're seeing a lot of people relocating, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So with that, naturally, then you were bartending, you had management experience for running different restaurants. So really with that, there's some simultaneous work with businesses.
Correct.
You can understand how businesses work and how restaurants work. So why would that be something that maybe if someone was considering selling a restaurant or maybe even buying, how's that a benefit as a realtor for them to work with you?
Yeah. Well, so with my history with managing, I did everything, from paying the bills, paying the rent, doing all of the maintenance other than the common area maintenance, which a lot of people don't know about. There are, specifics that the owner of the building is required to do. And there's a big, long contract that goes over those. And then what whoever's leasing the space is required to do.
Right. So it's really important that they understand all aspects of what they're required to do, what's important to do, preventative maintenance, and then also running the business itself entirely. So you can kind of look at a profit and loss and or a business and go, this is worth selling, or here's some things that you could do to help improve to help you get it sold.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Excellent. So you also have experience with rental income, experience with moratoriums and all that stuff. Very, very knowledgeable about that. So, and there's a lot of buzz about around the short-term rental and what's going to happen next.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So back in August of 2020, Chelan County put a moratorium on all short-term rentals.
Right. From
Chelan to Wenatchee to Leavenworth. They were not allowed to create any new. They were not allowed to make any changes to existings, and they weren't allowed to transfer any. That moratorium has continued to be extended, and they've got a public hearing this next Tuesday, the 17th, to see about extending it again. And
that's this August 16th?
17th.
17th, sorry, excuse me. Say that again. And at what time?
10:15 a.m.
10:15 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a public hearing.
It is a public hearing. So there's a Zoom link that's available on Chelan County's community development website.
Okay.
And they, they'll just decide
that they're going to extend basically. So that what that means for landlords and or for people who are wanting to purchase, right? So it's really, really important for people who are looking in the Chelan County area, if they're wanting to purchase and or extend, they need to understand what that really means, right?
Yes. So Chelan County had a board of commissioners, created 3 residents, 3 pro STR, and then 3 commissioners, 2 current, 1 previous.
Okay.
And they've been working on revising the code for Chelan County to actually change everything going forward. They finalized that, and it takes effect September 27th.
Okay, so remind us exactly what a moratorium is.
So the moratorium is a temporary stop to everything that's going on. So if they were to extend the moratorium right now, all that would do would limit the people who are already have short-term rentals that started after that August 25th date from being able to apply for the permits once that comes into.
So say someone has a property in Leavenworth, it's an Airbnb property, and they're wanting to rent that out for a short term over the weekends. They couldn't have done that in this last year. Since August, they could not have bought a new property and then started renting it out. Is that correct?
There's a very gray line there.
Yeah.
There's.
But according to the documentation.
According to the documents, they said no new, no changes, and no transfers.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was, but all of the current short-term rentals will be grandfathered in. They have to go through a permitting process, and then there's different tiers, and each zone is allowed different tiers. Tier 1 is owner-occupied, where you've got an owner on site.
Okay.
Tier 2 is non-owner occupied, but smaller units. And then Tier 3 is larger units, like 12 plus people.
Sure.
And there's lots of, stipulations about how to go about doing that. And I think all of the Tier 3 have to have a conditional use permit.
Okay.
So it's a little bit, there's more hoops to jump through.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what is it really that they should understand? If we're looking at this and investors or landlords or overall, what's the big picture that people really need to understand about moratoriums and looking at their investment right now, considering that, the 17th, they're going to have a talking about an extension rather than removing it?
Right. So the moratorium itself is... It is what it is.
Right.
What people need to really pay attention to is the changes to the code. And they finalized that. It's available on the community development website.
Yeah.
But it explains the permitting process, the pricing, everything you'll need. They go into bedrooms allowed, parking spaces, space between properties, and all of that is taken into account. So it's just a harder process to go through, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Absolutely. And just really understanding what those guidelines are, what those codes are, just so that you're in compliance and there isn't any big surprises, right?
The one really good benefit that they put in there was that everyone who has an established rental right now has 5 years to, if they want to, sell the property and transfer that short-term rental permit.
Excellent.
So if they sell after the 5 years, it's not transferable.
It's not transferable after that amount of time.
So those short-term rentals are going to, skyrocket in value because they have that ability to transfer that permit.
Right. And more people also are getting into rentals and purchasing. I mean, that's a huge portion of the pending applications in Chelan and Douglas County, right?
Yeah.
Is that, and they also, NAR Chief National Association, Lawrence Yoon said it's the highest time for rental and income for landlords right now.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
It's intense. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the real estate market, about your experience and horse property and where we think the market is headed after this quick commercial break. And we're back here with real estate agent Emily Ostrem. Thanks again for being here.
No problem.
So we talked about, you've got a great background with business and selling real estate for the last 3 years. And now also you have a love for horses.
Yes.
A big love for horses. And you understand what it takes to run equestrian properties, what it takes to have horses, and even to the emotional side and caring for them. So why would it be really important if someone was thinking about selling their home to contact you or their equestrian property?
Yeah. I've ridden horses since I was 6 years old. I trained for the Olympics after high school.
That's amazing. Wait, what? You trained for the Olympics? That's so cool.
Yeah, I started out with hunter jumpers, and then I moved to 3-day eventing, and I worked at 2 different working student programs in Maine right after I graduated high school.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I've done everything. I've mucked out stalls. I've exercised horses. I've given riding lessons. I've trained horses. I've been a barn manager, which is, managing the entire property and maintenance of the property, working with vets directly, and farriers and, everything that comes with all of that. So I have a very good working knowledge of what a property like that is capable of doing.
Yeah, and your cousin Molly too, right? You guys,
yes.
It's a family thing.
That was a thing, yeah.
Horses.
We grew up with her little pony.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's so great.
Yeah.
That is so great. So if someone was considering, selling an equestrian property, what would that look like? You go and give them a market analysis and kind of give them a consultation and help them. So walk us through that.
So, I would meet the owners, walk through the property, give suggestions on things that could help benefit the sale. Mm-hmm. Go through a market analysis. There's not a lot of equestrian properties that are being sold, so it really comes down to the knowledge that the agent has to be able to give a proper, market analysis for them.
And everyone has an Uncle Bob or an Aunt Carol that maybe is probably in real estate, right? And that's great. You want to respect your family, but it's so important too to also get a couple of opinions, right? To get a couple of opinions, especially if someone has a specialty in something. Yeah. Like if someone's thinking for sell by owner and they're thinking, well, we're just trying to save money. At the end of the day, we're actually helping people get more money by utilizing our resources, right? Yes. So what do you tell people when they say, well, I just want to save $1?
That it's not going to save them anything. I mean, in the long run, they're going to be, spending a lot out of pocket and doing a lot of the work themselves. And I mean, a lot of people just don't understand how much work is involved on the backside of writing offers and then going through the entire transaction. So it's really important to, shop around for an agent and make sure that they're exactly what you need for what you're trying to sell.
Yeah, especially when there's 5, 7, 22 offers on things. Yeah. So what is your best advice for, someone who is thinking about buying or maybe is just kind of exhausted from multiple offers? Yeah. How are you handling that?
I just tell them patience. Really, it's if it was the right property, we would have gotten it. It's not the right property if we didn't get it. So,
but that pre-approval.
Yes, the pre-approval is super helpful. I mean, it's pretty much mandatory at this point, So talk to your lender first before you find a real estate agent. You need to know what your buying power is, because you'll break your heart looking at properties that you realize you can't afford after you talk to a lender. So
getting it all into perspective.
Yes.
Understanding what that looks like. And, buying homes and selling is an emotional process, but really looking at things logically, the cerebral part of our brains, like really looking at it and going, all right, what are my options? What makes the most sense to win in today's market?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a huge decision. $500,000, $1 million, that's a lot of money, Right. So I want to make sure that my clients know exactly what they're getting. They're happy with what they're getting. I wrote a $4 million offer yesterday and we rescinded it today because the seller or the buyers decided that it was just too quick for them.
Sure.
And I said, absolutely not a problem. We'll find another one.
Too quick. $4 million that's
1.4.
1.4. Oh, 1.4. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
That's a big chunk of money.
It's a big chunk of money. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And really understanding that process. And that is knowing where are we at, knowing when to move forward and when to push the brakes, because it is risky. But it's fun too when we know exactly what we're getting ourselves into, when we have all the pieces to the puzzle. But knowing all the pieces to the puzzle, right, in the real estate market, it's hard to predict the future, but we can look backwards and we can see what's happening and what are the economists saying. So from your experience, from the west side of the mountains to over here, and your broad perspective with business, without having a crystal ball, where would you say the rest of the year is going for real estate locally?
Locally, there's always going to be a bit of an increase. The property values are always going to go up. Wenatchee is one of the fastest growing cities in the state. There's a lot of people who don't have to work in an office anymore and can work remotely, and so they're moving out and giving themselves more space. Yeah. So I don't see it really slowing down.
As far as demand
goes. But new construction is going to be getting bigger. I think, prices of lumber are going down, right. And there's a lot of people out there buying land right now.
Right. And they're saying, okay, if I'd sell my house, but where do I go?
Yes.
And if inventory is a little shorter, then if people can actually have the opportunity to design what they want, they can take their time to have something built, especially with all the equity that there is in today's market, right?
Yeah. I've also seen a lot of people decide to refinance and then, upgrade, add a bedroom or remodel a kitchen, and then, bide their time until they're ready to either build something or buy something that is within their budget and that, ticks all their boxes.
Right. And or buy a second investment.
Yeah,
right? If you can pull out a little money, if you have a bunch of equity in there and interest rates are super low, you couldn't go borrow that money, just even regular credit line or at the bank to go just borrow it and put it down on a house, right?
Yeah. I have a client, a couple who are good friends of mine now after I sold them a house in Peshastin. We just went pending on a little tiny house cabin in Skycomish, off of the South Fork of the Skycomish River. Yeah. And it was only 2 offers, but the other offer was all cash and ours was financed. And we were able to win over the cash offer with a love letter.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was pretty amazing.
That's amazing. So there was a cash offer on the table.
Yep.
And then you have financing, but you guys wrote a love letter.
Yes.
So sometimes sharing your perspective on where you're at can help be the difference between the win, right?
There's a lot of liability with it.
Yeah.
You have to be very careful about what you're saying and, what you disclose and, with the...
Well, exactly what you're saying to the sellers, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So with that, you work kind of across the whole state, really. You've sold properties in Tacoma and other places. So if people have needs, you can kind of help them throughout the state, correct?
Yeah.
It's in about a 2-hour plus range.
Yeah, I try to do like a 2-hour drive one way, but I've had people who started in Leavenworth and now are working in Goldendale, or ones that are looking up in Tonasket, and
awesome.
I'm willing to, to help them.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, if there was anything else that you wanted to leave the viewers with today, what would that be?
Just if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer them. You can reach me on my website, EmilySellsLeavenworth.com, or by phone, call, text, email, anything that you might have questions about. I would love to answer.
Well, I love that so much. I look forward to coming over and having you make me a drink personally at your home with all your bartending and business experience.
Yeah, I tend to be that person at parties.
I love that so much. Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure working with you, and thanks again for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, that was Emily Ostrom with Keller Williams North Central Washington, real estate agent. And I'm your host, Crystal Hughes. We'll see you here next week at home with NCWLIFE.